My son once looked me straight in the eyes and laughed, not joking, not teasing, but certain, and said, "Dad, you're too dumb with money. Just don't touch anything, I'll handle it." I nodded like he was right. What he didn't know was that his boss had my number saved under one word: VIP. I'm not a man who enjoys correcting people, especially not my own son. So when he said it, standing there in my small kitchen with his expensive watch flashing under the lights, I swallowed whatever pride I had left and kept quiet. That's something life teaches you early when you grow up with nothing. You learn when to speak, and, more importantly, when silence protects you better than truth. That night, the smell of burnt onions filled the room. I had cooked too slowly. Again, my hands aren't what they used to be. He pushed his plate away, already distracted by his phone. "You should really stop cooking," he said without looking up. "You waste money on groceries and still ruin them." I forced a smile. "Food tastes better when you make it yourself." He sighed, the way young men do when they think patience is something only old people need. "That's not how money works, Dad." "Ah, money?" The word sat between us like a stranger at the table. He talked about investments, apps, crypto, passive income. Big words, spoken quickly like speed itself proved intelligence. I listened, nodding, asking nothing. "Honestly," he continued, "you're lucky I turned out smart. Someone had to break the cycle." That one hurt. Not because he thought I was stupid, but because he thought I'd never noticed. After dinner, he left without saying thank you. I stayed behind, washing dishes in silence, watching my reflection in the dark window. An old man, according to him. A man who didn't understand money. If only he knew how many nights I'd gone to sleep hungry so he wouldn't. I didn't always look like this. There was a time when my back was straight and my hands steady. Time when I woke before sunrise and came home long after dark. I never worked one job. I worked whatever job paid. Construction, deliveries, repair work, then later paperwork. Long nights learning contracts by reading them again and again until the words made sense. I never taught my son how much I knew. I taught him something else instead: confidence. And confidence unchecked grows loud. A few days later, I drove him to work because his car was in the shop. The building he worked in was all glass and steel. It's the kind of place that makes you sit up straighter even if you don't know why. He got out, fixed his jacket, and paused. "You don't need to come in," he said. "Just wait here." "I need to speak with someone inside," I replied calmly. He raised an eyebrow. "About what?" "Business." He laughed, a short, sharp sound. "Dad, please don't embarrass me." I met his eyes. "I won't." He hesitated, then shrugged and walked away. I stayed in the car for a moment longer, breathing in, steadying myself. Not because I was nervous, but because I knew what was coming. And I wasn't sure if I was ready to see his face when it happened. Inside, the lobby was quiet. Marble floors, soft lighting, a desk polished so well you could see your future in it. The receptionist looked up and smiled politely, the kind of smile trained to vanish if you say the wrong thing. "May I help you, sir?" I told her my name. Her smile changed. Not wider, sharper, real. "Oh, one moment, please." She picked up the phone immediately. I could hear her voice lower, respectful. When she hung up, she stood there, expecting you. I hadn't taken 3 steps when a man in a tailored suit hurried toward me, adjusting his tie as he walked. "Sir," he said, extending his hand, "it's an honor. Thank you for coming in on such short notice." I shook his hand. "Call me by my name." "Of course," he said quickly. "VIP room is ready." That word VIP, it still feels strange when people say it about me. We walked past glass offices, past people who suddenly looked up from their screens. Some recognized my face, some recognized my name. None of them saw what my son always saw. An old man who didn't understand money. The conference room door opened, and there he was. My son stood up too fast, his chair scraping loudly across the floor. His boss turned, smiling, until he noticed his reaction. "Is everything all right?" The boss asked. My son's mouth opened, closed. His eyes moved from my face to the handshake, to the respectful distance everyone kept from me. "Dad?" he whispered. "Dot." I nodded. "Son?" The room went silent, thick, heavy. "This is your father?" the boss asked, genuinely surprised. "Yes," my son said slowly. The boss smiled. "You should be proud. He believed in us when no one else did." Son looked like the ground had shifted beneath him. Believed. "How with money?" the boss replied. "And patience." I watched my son's face change. Confusion first. Then disbelief. Then something close to fear. "You said you didn't understand money," he said quietly. I looked at him the way I did when he was younger and scared of the dark. I said I didn't talk about it. He swallowed. "How much?" I leaned back. In my chair. Enough. The meeting continued, but my son heard none of it. He kept glancing at me, like I might disappear if he blinked too long. When it ended, his boss thanked me again, promised updates, asked if I needed anything else. I stood. No, I just wanted to see the place. Outside, my son followed me in too. The hallway. Steps were slower now. "Careful." "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. I stopped walking. "You never asked." "That's not fair." I turned to face him. "Neither is calling someone dumb when you don't know their story." His shoulders dropped. For the first time in years, he looked younger, smaller. I thought you were struggling." I nodded. "I was. Before you were born, so you wouldn't have to." We stood there, surrounded by glass walls and quiet wealth. And for the first time, my son saw me not as an old man, but as someone who had chosen silence over praise. And that was only the beginning. We walked out of the building together, but the distance between us felt wider than the street outside. My son didn't speak at first. Kept glancing at me like he was trying to reconcile two different men in his head, the father who reused envelopes and counted coins at the kitchen table, and the man his boss had just thanked for keeping the company alive. When we reached the car, he stopped. "How long?" he asked. "How long what? How long have you had money like that?" I unlocked the car and sat down slowly. "Long enough to learn that money talks loudest when you stay quiet." He slid into the passenger seat, still. Stiff. "That doesn't make sense." I started the engine. "It will." On the drive home, memories I'd kept buried started surfacing, uninvited. Maybe it was time. Maybe silence had done its job long enough. "You remember when your mother got sick?" I asked. He nodded. "Yeah, you were always tired back then." "I sold my first small business that year." "You had a business?" His voice cracked slightly. I smiled, eyes on the road. "Two, actually. One failed. One didn't. I learned more from the one that failed." He leaned back, processing. "Why didn't we move? Or buy nicer things?" "Because stability matters. More than appearances." "And because I didn't want you growing up thinking money solves everything." He scoffed quietly. "It's funny, I grew up thinking we didn't have any." I didn't respond. Some truths don't need defending. That night, he stayed for dinner, really stayed. He didn't check his phone. He watched me cook. When I burned the onions again, he laughed, but gently this time. "You know," he said, "you could have at least taught me some of this." I looked at him. "You wouldn't have listened." He didn't deny it. Over the next few days, something shifted. He started calling more, asking questions. Not about money at first, but about me. About my childhood. About how I learned to read contracts. About why I never trusted fast success. One evening, he came over holding a folder. "My boss asked me to give this to you," he said. "He wants your opinion before the next round." I took it. "Did he?" My son hesitated. I asked him to. That was new. We sat at the table together, papers spread out. Pointed out things he'd missed. Clauses hidden behind friendly. Language, risks dressed up as opportunity. He watched closely, taking notes like he used to in school. "How did you see that?" he asked. "I've made that mistake before," I said. "Cost me 3 years." He winced. "Why didn't you?" "Quit?" "Because quitting teaches you nothing about finishing." The respect in his eyes felt heavier than any apology. A week later, his boss called me directly. My son was with me when the phone rang. "Sir," the boss said, voice eager, "we're hosting a small dinner. Investors only. We'd be honored if you joined." I looked at my son. "You coming?" He hesitated, then nodded. "If you want me there?" That answer mattered. The restaurant was expensive in the quiet way. No gold. No noise. Just confidence. People stood when I entered. Hands were shaken. Names remembered. My son followed a step behind, watching, learning. At one point, someone asked him, "How long have you worked with your father?" He froze. "Since birth," I said calmly. Laughter rippled around the table. My son smiled, but his eyes were wet. Later, outside, he finally said it. "I'm sorry." I waited. "I thought intelligence looked like confidence," he continued. "I thought money made noise." I nodded. "It can, but it doesn't have to." He swallowed. "I judged you." "Yes." "And you let me?" "Yes." "Why?" I looked up at the night sky. "Because lessons learned too early are forgotten. Lessons learned too late are ignored. I needed you to be ready." He didn't speak for a long time after that. Weeks passed. He started changing, not just with me, but with others. He listened more, spoke less. When coworkers bragged, he stayed quiet. When someone underestimated him, he smiled. One evening, he caught me counting cash at the table. "You still do that, Cass?" "Even now, especially now." He sat across from me. I used to think being smart meant never looking simple. I folded the bills neatly, and now I think it means knowing when simple is safer. I looked at him and felt something ease in my chest. Not pride. Relief. Because money can build distance faster than poverty ever does. And silence, when chosen carefully, can teach louder than words. But not everyone was happy about the truth coming out. And not every lesson comes without a cost. The truth has a way of spreading, even when you don't invite it. I never wanted my name to become a story inside that building, but stories grow legs when people start connecting dots. A few weeks after that dinner, I noticed the way conversations stopped when I walked into certain rooms. The respect was still there, but now there was curiosity mixed in. And curiosity can be dangerous. My son noticed it too. "People treat me differently now," he said one evening as we sat on the porch. The sun sinking low. Like I didn't earn my place. I took a slow breath. "Did you?" He flinched, then nodded. "Yes, but now they think it's because of you." "That's the price of association," I replied. "It's why I stayed invisible for so long." He stared at his hands. "I never thought about that." "Most people don't. They only see the benefits of being known. It's not the weight of being misunderstood." Not long after, his boss called again. This time, the tone was different. Warmth, more caution. "There's talk of a restructuring," he said carefully. "Some partners are nervous. They feel surprised." "Surprised by what?" I asked, though I already knew. "By how much influence you have." I smiled faintly. "Influence comes from consistency, not volume." There was a pause. "Would you consider taking a more visible role?" I looked at my son across the room. He was listening, pretending not to. "No," I said. "But I'll advise." Quietly, after the call, my son exhaled. "You could run that place." "I don't." "Want to?" I said. "I already raised something more important." He looked up. "Me." I nodded. "And now it's your turn to decide what kind of man you want to be when no one's watching." The real test came sooner than either of us expected. A junior employee, young, sharp, loud, made a presentation that wasn't his. My son recognized the numbers immediately. They were his, tweaked, but his. When he confronted the man privately, the response was a smirk. "You think anyone will believe you?" The man said, "Everyone thinks you're here because of your dad." My son came home that night furious, not shouting, not pacing, just quiet in the way I recognized immediately. I wanted to yell, he said. I wanted to remind him who you are. What did you do instead? I asked. I documented everything, dates, emails, versions. I nodded. Good. The next meeting was tense. When the evidence came out, the room shifted. The junior employee tried to laugh it off. No one laughed back. Afterward, my son's boss pulled him aside. You handled that well, he said, very professionally. My son replied calmly, I learned from someone who doesn't talk much. That night, he told me what he'd said. He was smiling, but there was something else there too. I finally understand, he said. Why you let people think you were less. I sipped my tea, and it shows you who they really are. Exactly. Time passed. The company grew. My son grew with it, but differently now. He stopped chasing titles. He started building trust. When bonuses came, he didn't spend loudly. When mistakes happened, he owned them. One afternoon, he came over with an envelope. What's this? I asked. My first independent investment, he said. Small, quiet, no one knows. I raised an eyebrow. And you're telling me? He smiled. Because I want your advice, not your money. I opened the envelope, reviewed the plan. Solid, conservative, patient. You'll do fine, I said. He swallowed. That's it. That's everything. Years ago, I thought success was about providing. Then I thought it was about protecting. Now I know it's about teaching without forcing the lesson. A few months later, my son invited me to speak at a small internal workshop. Not as an investor, not as a VIP, just as someone with experience. I stood in front of a room full of young professionals and told them the truth. I was once called dumb with money, I said, smiling, and it was the greatest advantage I ever had. They laughed, unsure if I was joking. I listened while others talked. I waited while others rushed. I lost quietly and learned completely. Afterward, my son hugged me. Not the quick kind. The kind that holds, I used to think you were behind, he said softly. Turns out you were just ahead on a different road. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw not the boy who once mocked my simplicity, but a man who had learned humility without being broken by it. Money didn't fix our relationship. Silence didn't either. Truth did. And the funny thing is, my son never called me dumb again. Not because he was afraid, not because he was embarrassed, but because he finally understood that intelligence doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it waits.